Hi everyone, my name is Karina Winston and I'll be your instructor for today's module. Ready to begin? Let's talk about compound interest. I'll give you a quick rundown of how this module will flow. I'll begin with the formal definition and then I'll break it down and apply it to real life examples. The purpose is to come out of this module not only understanding what compound interest is, but how you can leverage it to build personal wealth. Okay, let's begin by formally defining compound interest. TD Bank defines compound interest as interest calculated on both the principal amount of money, like a loan or a deposit, and on the interest payable or earned on that principal amount. Over time, this can lead to significant growth of your investment as each round of earnings adds to the base amount that generates future returns. This process creates a snowball effect where your initial investment grows because you earn returns not just on your original amount, but also on the earnings that have been reinvested. So, from these examples, you can start to understand why, especially in the case of investing, you would love compound interest. But before I move on to the next slide, I want to mention something really important that I noticed when developing this module. The majority of resources online that describe what compound interest is focus on what it does for investments, which is very positive. And that's because institutions do not want you to worry too much about what it does to credit card debt or student loans. I wanted to illustrate exactly what I mean by describing where compound interest can help and where it can hurt. It can help you if you're keeping your savings in a high interest savings account. Usually they keep an average of 2 to 5% interest, and the same thing goes for investments, but that interest rate is dependent on many factors. Either way, you can expect to make money over time. Where it hurts now is when you're carrying a credit card debt and you can't pay the balance in full when it comes to the statement date, and the interest accumulates at about 19 to 23% each month. For student loans, this is the result of the income-based repayment plans that are typically offered to graduates when you graduate and your income tends to be lower, and we need to take advantage of some of these repayment plans to keep things afloat. But many of us are not taught that when our income increases, we need to rapidly pay off the loan because it is accumulating compound interest. Even though it's at a lower rate than credit cards, it can still be a lot of money over a long period of time. So after 5 years, the initial investment of 1,000 grew to $1,586.87, thanks to the power of compound interest. So now I'm going to give you an example of the opposite. Okay, so for the opposite, imagine a student graduates school with $20,000 worth of student loans. But for this example, we're assuming that the student has put their loan repayment on pause and isn't currently making any payments. So the loan is just sitting there and the account is growing, but not for the student, for the bank at a compounded interest rate of 5% per year. So over 5 years, at the end, the student would have paid $5,000 more in interest just over 5 years. So at the end of that, that's $25,000 instead of $20,000. Okay, so just like Drizzy Drake said, it goes from 0 to 100 real quick. And I think he actually might have been talking about compound investing when he wrote that song. After this course, I want you to remember that compound interest can simply be defined as interest that is earned on top of interest. And I also want you to remember the real life applications of compound interest with debt and also with investments so that you can always remember how you can push yourself forward or encourage yourself to pay off debt quicker. And from personal experience, I'll tell you, for debt relief, nothing gives urgency like some compounded interest that you don't want to pay. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. And of course, you can hang around after class to ask questions, or I'm here for the next 15 minutes. You can add your questions in the chat and I'll address them as I see them.